Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Coe, and I'm an MBA student at MIT Sloan, and I'm super excited to introduce this episode of A Touch More, presented by the Wasserman Foundation. Today, your co-hosts are Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe, co-founders of A Touch More, and I'll let them introduce their guests. This talk will run for 60 minutes, and we'll aim to address some audience Q&A at the end, so you can submit those via the Cadence app. All right, thank you, and enjoy.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I've never been a moderator here. I've been coming here for 10 years. I've never held the iPad.
Oh,
This is a
congratulations.
big moment.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Yelling for an iPad.
Welcome to A Touch More live from MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference.
I'm Megan Rapinoe.
And I'm Sue Bird. This is A Touch More. Let's get into it. All right, we're going to start a little bit before we bring Lauren in with what we call the check-in. As we said, we are live here at Sloan, and as I said, I've been coming here for essentially 10 years, and what I've always loved about this conference is the conversations, the innovation, obviously most of it around data, but I feel like I've learned so much, whether I've tapped into panels or I'm sitting up here next to Daryl listening to him,
Be funny.
Yeah,
That was
he's
funny.
actually funnier than you realize, huh? Daryl Morey? Yeah. LOLs all over the place.
He wasn't having it. He wasn't having it with the other
No, that
panels.
was, I know. Now he's like anti-3-pointers. It's very confusing. It's very confusing.
I don't know what the solution. I didn't walk away with the solution. I know that much.
It's cyclical, Megan,
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do? A 4-pointer? That makes no sense.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, what?
They should
It's
listen to
like,
us.
are you gonna make the 2s 3 points and then the 4s? The
It would go
3s 4
2,
point?
3, 4.
No, the games
Like,
are gonna be like 500 to 300. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, but it would be analytically correct.
There is a point, but you can't do half points. It's like a whole thing. It's just-
Anyways,
I don't know.
another part of coming to Sloan that I have seen over the last 10 years is just the addition of more women, more female voices, their takes, not just in women's sports itself, but in the world of sports in general. So special shout out to Jess Gelman for obviously putting the conference on, but for really bringing in the woman's voice. And I started coming here because of a Players Tribune article I wrote, Analyze This, which talked about the lack of data in the WNBA and how that impacts conversations, fan engagement, storytelling. But now that women's sports is booming, and now that we are at Sloan, a place where trends are talked about a lot, Megan, is women's sports a trend?
Yeah, like breathing is a trend. I mean, yeah, no. Women's sports has been here the whole time. Marie said on the last panel that I was on, like, we've never had an engagement issue. It's been a distribution to the masses sort of issue. So no, I don't think women's sports is a trend. I think it's like fully here. It's fully in its moment. I think it's finally being appreciated from a lot of different perspectives, whether that's like the larger fan base or the media, from a valuation standpoint. Like, I would just hate to be some of these people who are buying teams now that literally 4 years ago you could have got it for $5 million and now you paid $200 million for it. It's just like, gotta suck. That, like, I mean, I wish I would have bought a team 4 years ago. That would have been a good investment. But
Same.
yeah, we could have pooled our money and bought a team, and now it's totally out of range. But no, I don't think that it's a trend, and I think that it's like the most exciting thing happening in all of sports because the upside is just so huge, and there's just like so much wide open space. What about you? Do you think it's a trend?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think we just finally got people to pay attention. The story I tell that really marks this for me, because we get this all the time, like, is this just, the moment, is a flash in the pan, all those things. Bill Simmons, for a really long time, especially early in my career, did not like the WNBA. He didn't speak fondly of it. He'd kind of shit on it. He even, if you Google it, he said something about me and like, I mean, yeah, she's cute. I might watch her because she's cute, but not not her as a
Gross.
basketball player.
You are
Okay.
cute, though.
Yeah, you are cute. Yeah. Yes.
That's true.
Undeniably. Yeah.
But recently, and I think it was around the time that the WNBA signed its new media deal, he was the one being like, they got a bad deal. Like, this should have been more money. And he was actually talking about the WNBA the way he would or the way he has other male sports. And that to me marked like a moment. That was like this line that we crossed over to have somebody like Bill Simmons, who's obviously well known in this space, talk about our sport for it being a sport and having respect for it. So that's why I don't think it's a trend. But something else we do talk about that's important as women's sports starts to continue is the role of the athlete. So what do you think the role of the athlete is in all of this, in the business?
Well, I think what's really interesting about women's sports right now, and specific to the role of the athlete, is we have this like really long history of men's sports. They've like tried a bunch of stuff. Some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. Like I feel like we know a really solid blueprint of how to grow our sport. And I think something that has been clearly something people love is how much engagement the athlete has, whether that's in the collective bargaining agreements, whether that's in the general narratives around the leagues, whether that's like in the content. I mean, just did a whole panel on athlete-driven content. Like, the more the athlete is involved, I think the better the product. Like, obviously without the athletes, you don't have anything. And on the flip side of that, without all the smart people around that run the teams, like you don't have the sports either. And so I think for a long time, the athletes were sort of cut out of it. And now I think we're sort of getting our rightful place in the conversation at the table, adding what we can, adding our unique perspective to it, along with all of the other things that we know very well from sports.
Yeah, the athlete gives it breath, gives it feel, gives it nuance.
The authenticity.
Yes, the authenticity for sure. Gives it the expertise, because we lived it, so we have a different vantage point. What about, now that you're retired, and now that we're all retired, I guess, what about the difference between being an active player and a retired player? Like, what are you seeing in that, in terms of how it impacts the business?
Well, it's just from a totally different perspective. Like when you're an athlete, it's just like you're just in it. You don't have to find your way in it and through it. And we're gonna, ask you about this for sure. And we are gonna bring you in. We're not.
Yeah, we are. We're not ignoring you.
I love this. I can sit here for the whole hour. I'm good.
You're like, I got a babysitter. I'm
Yeah,
good.
this is great.
I'm kid free.
Yeah. Like as an athlete, you're already inside of it. You're a part of it. You're talking about it. You're in it. It's like everything is just right there. And I feel like as a retired athlete, you have to be more intentional on how you want to be involved in it, how you talk about it, like really how you kind of sink your hooks in, I think. So that's sort of like the biggest difference. What have you, you got a year on me.
I do have a year on you.
So what am I missing here?
Well, I think as a retired player, you have more time, which is good and bad. Yeah. That's a whole other podcast. So you have more time to do all the things.
It's hard.
I feel like you don't have to worry about your team or your teammates as much and some of the things you might want to push on or discuss. I don't mean give crazy hot takes. That's obviously not what we do. But I just always felt as a player, I was mindful of like, I don't know, all the people that I had to represent in one moment. Just sitting on a panel, I was representing like 10 different people. And now it's like just me and like you, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, just us.
Just us, guys.
So that
We're
I
the
feel like it gives it something different. As a retired player, you can cause a little more trouble. You're not gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, no, you got no, GM or president or coach or team
knocking on your door.
or media officer.
Right. Well, without further ado, we do have somebody sitting with us who knows a lot about the business of women's sports. World Cup champion, two-time Olympic gold medalist, Lauren Cheney-Holiday. Welcome, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
Now Boston's finest.
Boston's finest. Boston's finest. All right, so before we get into a lot of the women's sports business stuff that you're getting into, something we talked about recently, it was during the Super Bowl, the Chiefs, they'd gone to the Super Bowl, 5 times, lost twice. Obviously, that means they've won 3. So it's the question we posed each other. Would you rather go to a World Cup final? Let's assume it was every year, not every 4. Would you rather go to a World Cup final 3 times and win 3, or go 5 and win 3, which means you lost twice?
Oh.
I know.
I like perfection. I'm super competitive, so 3 for 3 sounds pretty
Let's
dang
go.
good. But I think I would rather go 5 times.
But it means you were good enough to win and you lost.
I know, but
This is my
I think
argument.
of 2011, the World Cup, and when we lost to Japan. And it was like brutal. Like, I don't think you guys understand. Like, we were really freaking good.
We were better, yeah.
And our team was like, we really liked each other.
Yeah, it was a good
Like, it
group.
was like a really, really, really good team. And everything seemed to align. And it was like, we beat Brazil in like a crazy, crazy fashion. And it was like, oh no, this is our tournament. This is our game. And then we lost. And it was like, I think I learned more in that loss than I ever learned in a win.
I guess I forgot about the lessons and all that.
Yes,
But also,
yes.
I like never wanted to lose again. You know, like I feel
Yeah.
like it was like, man, nothing is like given, even though we know that as athletes. Like it felt like it was written in the stars for us in 2011. Like,
Oh, I was like shocked. I was like, what do you, we lost? This is like, I thought we were just gonna get here and win.
yeah.
We were both subbed off in
Wait,
that
is
game.
that-
I would argue that that did not help us win.
Fair.
You at halftime because they thought your ankle was bad, and I was like, it's fine.
Tape it up over
I was
the
like,
cleat. Like,
she's
what are
fine.
we doing?
What is she doing getting subbed out? This is insane.
Okay, can I tell a story about 2011 too?
Please,
So,
yes.
2011, we like go in the meeting room. I am not starting. Meg is starting. Like this is our normal thing. We also play two completely different positions. No big deal. And we're watching the first game of the World Cup together. And on the screen, it comes across. It's like Lauren Cheney is starting for Megan Rapinoe, and we're like,
Like on ESPN,
Yeah.
like the ticker.
and I'm like, what? And she's like, what? And I was like, I don't play left mid. And she's like, you don't play left mid. And I'm like,
I think you should be starting, just not a. Just
and
not a mid.
literally, I said, Meg, I can't play left mid. She goes, I don't know if you should be playing left mid, but you should be on the field. And that was when I was like, oh, damn, like she believes in me. And she could be like, screw you. Like, why are you starting over me? Like, because to be fair, Meg should have been starting also.
That's right.
And but she didn't.
That is correct.
She didn't. She was like, this is what you need to like focus on. This is your strength. This is what you do. You got this. You're going to be fine. And I think that was like my favorite part of 2011 was like, we were literally sitting next to each other, both shell-shocked. I'm starting, she's not. I'm playing a position I've never played before in my life. And she's like, no, you got it.
Yeah, like
And
you'll be fine. But I'm pissed. and
And
by the end, we were both starting.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, that just like is what women's sports should be about. All sports should be about.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that we were not on the field together. I
I
was
can't
like,
believe we found out on the ticker.
it was fucking crazy.
On the ticker. And also,
I was like, Pia.
you brought us all
Coach.
together to watch the game. You don't think you would have told us before, but hey,
I know.
you
I'm like, did you just tell them without telling us? This is.
it was
like,
wild. It
What?
was wild.
Speaking of being in charge of your own media narrative, I mean, thanks a lot. Okay, so we're sort of newer to retirement. You're well into your retirement. How would you describe your relationship with women's sports? How has it changed over time? And are you watching as a fan or more of like with a business eye to it? Both. How's that whole relationship?
Yeah. So when I retired in 2015, I thought, oh, I'm retiring and I'm going to be like still very involved in the game and I'm going to like do other things like super impactful and I'm going to be all of the things. And then I got pregnant, diagnosed with a brain tumor, had my daughter 6 weeks early, end up having brain surgery 4 weeks later. And I literally wanted to hide from everyone. And I think it was like my way of healing, you know, like I needed a process. I needed to understand everything. And I wanted to be present. Like I wanted to be present with her. I wanted to be present with my family. Like I think I had a reality check of what mattered. And that lasted a total of 2 years. And then I was like, I have a daughter. What am I doing hiding? Like she needs to see that women are badass and she needs to see like what we're capable of. And that's when I started to like, okay, I'm gonna put myself out there. I want to be involved in sports, but I want to be involved in a way that like I'm able to change things. I don't want to just get involved and be like, oh, she put her name on something and everyone's happy. And so it took me a little while to really start to get into that. And now watching women's sports, I'm not only looking at it from an investment side, but like I'm a fan of our women's national team. Like I am an actual fan. Like I am texting people when Lily Johannes gets on the field, and I'm like, she is badass. Like, she's 17. I would have kicked the ball out of bounds 17 times at her age. And so I think I'm doing both. Like, I'm a true fan of the game and of the team and of all the women. And then I'm also like, how can we make this even greater than what it already is? The growth is crazy from the time the NWSL started till now. And now it's, you know, like Meg said, like, you could buy a team for nothing. You just had to be a dad of a daughter. And now, it's completely changed.
You just signed the check, dad of a daughter.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's plenty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're like, he cares.
Awesome.
He cares. Yeah.
Dovetailing on that a little bit, last year, NWSL final, 967,900 viewers, incredible numbers. I'm sure you're following the W as well. We were awesome basketball players in our day.
We'll get into that later.
We're going to get to that later.
Phenomenal.
Just like, what's your reaction specifically to the NWSL numbers, but also just to the last year in women's sports? Like, how has that been for you just watching it?
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, you and I could have stories for days, but
we
like,
played in front of like 12 people at times. Not because we weren't entertaining, just I don't know why people weren't there.
Because no one knew that
No
there
one
was
knew.
even a team
No one even
in the
knew
city.
the game was there.
My reaction is like, that's low. Like, that number is still low for us. And like, the amount of awareness and the amount, like, I don't think people realize people are more invested in women's sports because of our genuineness. Like, you guys were talking, and I wanted to butt in, but I didn't, and I listened very well. But you guys were talking about just like kind of, you know, how that is like now for women. Like, how do you influence it as an athlete? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? And I'm like, women's sports was built on the back of women who cared about women. They didn't care about the celebrity. They didn't care about making money. Mia Hamm had no clue like the impact she was going to have on generations and generations to come. They cared about each other. How do we build each other up? They cared about growing the game, and they cared about little girls having someone to look up to and say, hey, I can do this. They cared about people being able to say, okay, these little girls, they don't have to just be this. They can be whatever they want to be. And I think that's the difference between women's sports and men's sports. And that's why I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface, because we care. And I feel like when you put love into something and you care so genuinely about it, it's just going to explode.
Yeah, well, I mean, to get into ownership, I think speaks to that as well. Like, you care. You want to be a part of this. You want to change it. You're obviously into that world now, as am I. Megan will get there eventually.
Yeah, I'm gonna
gonna
get
be an
there,
owner?
guys. I'm gonna get there, y'all.
Okay, we're waiting.
I know I'm not at your guys' level yet, but
Okay, I just want to point.
I'm working hard.
But we are, as Megan mentioned, a little bit behind you. So when you already mentioned your journey and kind of like what made you want to get back out there in terms of having the impact on the game of soccer, now we're into ownership. What's like your vision on how your impact can be from the ownership side of things?
Yeah, I think that really when I've like thought about it and how I want to impact the game, is the word that always comes up is integrity, right? My husband plays in the NBA. I get to see ownership from the men's side, and then obviously I lived it on the women's side. And I think the common theme for me is like, there is a lack of integrity from the top down in all sports. And in women's sports, it's so much worse because there's been so much abuse, you know? There's been so many things taken advantage of, women looked at as lesser, women looked at as whatever, men can do whatever they want or control it however they want. So I see that gap. But truly, in any business at the top, if there's not integrity, you don't have a product, right? And so I see this in women's sports. I see there's a lack of integrity from the top, whether it be whoever is leading it doesn't fully believe that it's going to get to $1 billion valuation, or they don't fully believe that the investment is worth it, or they don't see that their dollars are going to actually they're going to get paid back times 10 if they actually just invest in the women and invest in their facilities and invest in the betterment of the game. And so I think that my vision is like, how do you establish integrity from the top down? I already know our women are going to buy in. I already know that the players are going to buy in. But if you lie to them or you tell them, hey, we're going to do this, and then you do the opposite, there's a distrust between ownership and player. And I think that that's my vision, is like, how do we create a world, because I think women are going to do it first. How do we create a world in which there is integrity from the top down, and then every team in every league is going to want that model?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times in sports, a franchise can get the tag of good culture.
Yep.
And you're like, no, it's the people in the franchise. If those people left, so would that culture. So I totally agree with you. Outside of some of the resistance you may have seen in some of what you mentioned, what else has been kind of like the biggest challenge in being in the ownership group?
I think the biggest challenge is like opening doors for athletes. Like, you think about a Michael Jordan, right? Like, I don't know the whole story then. I don't know what happened when he got into ownership, but it seemed like they wanted him in that position. Fair. Mm-hmm. I would want Michael Jordan in that position also. But it's like, but what about female athletes who have made a fraction of what these male athletes have made? How are you giving them a platform to actually get involved? Do you know why I have the chance at ownership? Because of my husband. Truly. And like, I say that not because I'm like, oh, I'm so proud. It's like, well, he's made 10 times, 20 times more than I ever could have imagined making, and that's probably even light. And he says, I believe in women's sports too, and I believe in you, and go do it. But how many women have that? How many female athletes have went through and they're making that kind of money to be able to invest in? So it's like, what's the vehicle? Like, where are the owners that are saying, actually, I need to learn from you? Where are the billionaires saying, Sue, no, I want you to run it. Meg, I want you to run it. And I think that that's where there's a disconnect. We did that for Michael. Not that Michael couldn't buy a team by himself and he has the money, but we haven't, there's a gap. There's a wealth gap. And they're undervaluing. And so I think that that's the difference.
Where do you feel like retired players, like in the business development or the running of the teams, can be most impactful? Because I totally agree with what you're saying. It's like, I feel like I have, all of us have so much experience. We know the ins and outs. We know the long history. We know how to sell it. We know, what's coming next. Like, we understand what these players are going through. And yet, we don't have the money, so we're just going to be cut out. Where do you feel like we can have like the most impactful position in the business development? Or where would you like to have the most impact?
Yeah, well, first, if anyone wants to give Meg $1 billion, she will be an owner, and she would be a great one. So there's that.
We'll run it together.
I think the positions that athletes can be in, like culture, obviously, right? But also just in the hiring process. Who knows better than us than what a good coach is? Who knows better than us what a good president would be? Like, what kind of rapport? We can ask the hard questions. No, how are you going to treat a player when you know you're going to trade them and da-da-da-da-da and this? What's your protocol? And how are we going to create a culture this way? What do you believe in? We could weed out people in 2 seconds just because we've lived it. You know what coaches you didn't like. You know what GMs you didn't like. We know what coaches we didn't like. We know what, you understand as a player when it was a really toxic culture. So it's like, how are we not being asked to be a part of the hiring process? Why would we not want Meg and Sue in the board meetings understanding who are we hiring? And how do we develop a league? Where's the development side? And I think in the NWSL, that's where we lack. Like, where are we developing? We have 16-year-olds. They're nowhere near ready. With that said, I love Lily Alanis. Like, I think she's Ali Sentinor. These are phenomenal athletes, but we're doing a disservice to them not having an entire development side for them, not just physically, mentally, everything. Like, when I came into the national team, I didn't speak. I was 17 years old. I'm like, I'm not saying a word until someone talks to me, right? Yeah. But it's like, we had older players that were taking us under our wing and kind of guiding us through. But like, why are we not doing that for 16-year-olds? Like, we need a development side. There's so much that we can do. And I think that athletes would serve as the best, like, understanding of that.
That leads me to my next question. I mean, you were the best player in the NWSL for the whole time that you played in it. You were the first player to have your jersey retired.
Thank you.
Your legacy lives forever there. And such a huge part, give that up. Yeah. Such a huge part of like the early growth and development of the league. Now the league is what, in its 14th year, 14th year? What do you feel like is success for the league? You touched on a little bit this sort of like development part, but next, 5-10 years, like what do you feel like would be success for the NWSL moving forward?
I think facilities success would be, and I think we're doing it, making sure that we have very specific facilities for women, cutting edge, elite, top of the line programs for our specific female bodies, like investing in female bodies, understanding that, I think is success. I mean, on the other side, travel, I took 3 flights to get to Seattle once.
Yep, that's right.
I think we still beat them, but
You did.
I won't talk about it.
And that is why your jersey is retired.
Had 2 really crushing losses to Cheney in the final, back-to-back years. It was
Sorry about
awful.
that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you guys were better.
I think the
Really
travel is like a huge success. Like, how do we get them private travel? How are we treating them as they should be treated? Their bodies with recovery, everything, having that across the board. I think success is the valuations continuing to rise, but with no fluff, like real valuations. And I think the attendance numbers and the viewership, like those are going to show the success of the league. And most importantly, a healthy league. Like, stop with all the abuse and all of the shenanigans. Like, why are we rehiring? Why are we continuing the cycle? I think that we will truly hit like professionalism when we stop that.
Absolutely. So you are now advising Mercury 13, which owns FC Como in Italy. You've already talked about how your expertise in player treatment is kind of where you see you can have impact. I'm curious about what you're seeing in terms of the differences of working with a European club versus an NWSL club.
Sometimes I have PTSD because I feel like working with a European club is like 10 years behind the NWSL. And I'm going to Italy tomorrow to go and see Como women. And they're asking me for real feedback on their facilities, and I'm terrified. But why I aligned with Mercury 13 and why I'm so passionate about them is because they want to make real change, and they want to do it the right way. And so getting to advise them, say, hey, I don't see eye to eye with that, but maybe this has been really fun. But I think the European Women's League is a little bit behind the NWSL. And then you see the difference like in the WSL, and now they're getting players from the NWSL. That's been a big topic. Are we worried? Are we not? And I'm like, it's not about worrying. It's about bringing all of the leagues up. Like, how are we getting the WSL? Because right now it's about the top 4 teams maybe that could compete with the NWSL and in like salaries and things like that. And then it's like, okay, what about the Italys and the Spains, and how are we bringing all of those, even the Scandinavian countries, how are we bringing all of these leagues up? So that's more so how I look at it.
Yeah, you just brought up some of the poaching that's happening. Some of these European teams are taking some of the best players. Obviously, Naomi Girma is the most recent with this ginormous transfer fee. So I'm curious what you think about that, but what you think the impact is. Is it amazing that we're seeing this record-breaking transfer fee, right? Like, great, Naomi's gonna get paid all this money, or is it gonna ultimately hurt the NWSL, maybe even hurt the national team? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I think it can be both. Okay. Like, I think we can celebrate that transfer fee because way to go, girl. Huge Naomi Girma fan.
Huge.
Love her.
I know,
Wish
honestly,
I played with her.
Megan, you actually speak fondly of 2 people, Naomi and Lauren. These
Yeah.
are like her two absolute faves.
No shade to
Everybody
anybody
else,
else,
she's
but-
like, no.
Yeah. No, as players, yeah.
Yeah.
And people just, oh,
You
yeah.
speak in a very high regard. The way she speaks about you, I'm noticing it in how you describe Naomi. But sorry, continue.
So I think it can be both, right? I don't think because Naomi left, then the NWSL is crushed. But do I want Naomi in the NWSL? 1,000%. But I also think there's a way to honor, like, it can be our dream to go play in Europe. Like, it's a lot of girls' dreams to go play in Europe. Like, they have a vehicle to get there. They have the ability to go live a life in Europe and explore and also be a part of a soccer culture that is just not in America. Like, and I think that's beautiful and great. And then also, what are we doing with our salary cap? What are we doing to keep them here? What are we doing to get the best European players over? And so I think that these are good problems to have, and they're gonna grow the league even more. So I think I sit in the place of both. Celebrate the $1 million transfer fee, celebrate Naomi, and I hope she crushes it. And I don't think it affects her on the national team. I truly believe she's the best defender in the world. And I don't think that that's gonna change. But also, how do we get her home? And I think that that's a problem the NWSL has to figure out.
Yeah, I think it's more like how, because clearly there was something enticing about that. And there could be things, like you said, she's living in London and she might really want to do that and she wants to play overseas and play in Champions League. And that's something that NWSL is never going to be able to provide. Fine, that's not everybody's dream. But how do we make our environments irresistible, essentially?
1,000%.
So, I mean, I think part of the reason why she left was because of the environment in San Diego. It's like, I don't know what the practice facility is. The stadium field is wild. Like, other things happening. Maybe it's not the team she wants. So I think more than focusing on, like, okay, a couple players have left and freaking out about, like, how do we keep our players? It's more just like, how do we make this entire league better? All the teams, all the facilities, and that goes to the greater business. But yeah, I'm kind of in it with you. I'm like, okay, she wants to go over there and play. Like,
Totally.
you know, she probably won't want to live in Europe forever. Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? I want to switch to the national team a little bit. Emma Hayes, they had their first, sort of like tournament loss. Emma Hayes had her first loss in She Believes Cup. I want to get your thoughts on that. There's a lot of like dissecting what this loss means. Does it mean anything?
They lost.
Yeah, they lost. The health of the team, their performance, like all of that. How are you looking at the team right now, and how did you view that She Believes Cup?
Okay, to be fair, and I want everyone to hear this, because I feel like when we were on the team, everyone was like, oh, those old national team players were such critics, right? Like, everyone was like, the 99ers hate us. And it's like, well, that's not true. Like, we want you to be great. And so I want to be clear, like, this is my favorite U.S. women's national team.
Oh, they're great.
Like, I love them. Watching at the Olympics, like, we were giddy.
Crying,
like,
giddy, screaming,
crying,
freaking
screaming,
out.
giddy, like so happy to watch them play.
I love them.
And with that, I think they lost in the She Believes Cup. Big deal.
Yeah.
I think it's a time to examine. I think it is a time for competition. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of pieces that they're going to have to put together. I don't envy Emma. And I think a loss is a loss. And I think that's what it was. I don't think it's anything bigger. I don't think we need to dissect it into like, they're going to fall apart. They're too young. They're too this. I think now is the time to lose.
Yeah, it's kind of like a perfect, I mean, it's like, of course, you never want to lose anything, but like, you did. So learn from it. Obviously, the front three is out. Naomi's gone. Rose is still out with injured. So there's a lot of players missing. I loved that all these players just got like thrown into the fire and was like, yeah, you go start. You go try to win the tournament. It's hard. That's going to be good because a lot of those players that were starting are probably going to be the players coming off the bench. Gives you an appreciation for how hard it is.
I
to
agree.
come off the bench, to start, to be the one where all the responsibility is, like all of that.
And it gives them a taste of what they want to fight for. Like if they never get to play, if they never get those minutes, if they're just the 10 minutes sub off the bench and they never actually get to play. You're so nervous going in the last 10 minutes or you can never get a rhythm. Like they actually got a chance to like see what it takes to play at that level against a really good Japan team.
Really good Japan team.
Like-
I mean,
So good.
I only know what I know. I was blown away by them.
You know we hate playing against Japan. I mean,
Yeah, I know
they're
you
just
guys
Like, you
hate
can't.
Japan is so good.
Not that different in basketball, to be honest. They play very similar.
Oh,
Yeah.
So good.
And so I think it's okay. And if we want to talk about Emma Hayes, like we needed someone like Emma Hayes.
Yeah.
We needed someone to change the way that the U.S. women's national team is run. It has been the same way for so long. I mean, when we were there, well, it was like you grind until you can't grind anymore, right? There was never,
Yeah.
you were never secure. You were never like, I could have started for 3 years straight and I'm like, oh my God, I might not make this camp.
Yeah.
I might not get called into camp.
Yeah.
And it's like, how? How is that like the culture? But that was the culture. And that is what made us great. And I think that is super powerful. And also, things have changed. And people are different.
Yeah.
And this generation is different. And like, hats off to Emma. I think she's doing it the right way. I think she is meeting them where they are. And I think she's letting them be them. And I think that's the first time in a long time that the U.S. women's national team has had the freedom to express themselves in the way that they want to. And I'm excited. I love them.
Same. We're just fans now.
Yeah.
We're just big fans now.
Outside of, you mentioned Lily, any other players?
Oh, Alex
you're-
Sentner is amazing. Jaden Shaw, amazing.
We got a Utah.
We got a
owner in the
Utah,
house.
yeah.
We got a Utah Royals owner in the
Okay,
house.
can I tell you guys something? Please do not make fun of me.
Okay.
So all the young players, like some of them follow me on Instagram, some of them don't. I like added all of them and then
Totally. I follow him too. I'm like, follow.
and then after the game, one of the She Believes games, I think it was the first one, I'm like, you were phenomenal. If you need anything, I'm here.
I love that.
If you would like to talk. And so I'm like totally fangirling. Like
Wait, did she respond?
yeah, all of them responded like, oh my
I love
gosh,
that.
thank you so much. But I'm like, I'm old, y'all.
You're the auntie.
And I'm also
You're
like
the
a
auntie.
fan. I wanted to tell them like, thought you were phenomenal. Love the way you read the game. Lily, you play like you're 35. Like what? You're 17. I'm like so excited, but that's my confession.
I love it. Honestly, you brought up earlier, we were all at the Olympics last year together, and there was kind of a feeling of like, we didn't have a lot of connection with our past players. Like there wasn't the mechanism, like social media hadn't really like
Yeah.
popped off the way it was. We didn't see them a lot. And now there's like so much more of us still involved. And that's something that we talked about. Like we want to have that connection. We're their biggest fan. Like
Totally.
I mean, even just from a selfish perspective, if the team's terrible after we leave, like that's a bad legacy. Like what the team's just like not good now, you didn't build a good foundation. But it's like, it is so cool to be able to be fans of them and still have that connection. Like the women's national team, the threads just, go all the way back to 85 or whatever, the first year of the team. Anyways, I'm just rambling now, but we just love them, basically what we're saying.
We were able to do a live show at the Olympics as well, and Mia Hamm came on, and that was probably my favorite part of that interview, was listening to her tell the story of Emma bringing the 99ers in to talk to the current team and just making that connection, because it is interesting in retirement. You can get lost a little bit as a player. You can get a little detached from different teams or different programs. And so to have someone, in this case, Emma, bring that all back in and just, again, watching Mia talk about it, kind of get choked up even, to keep that connection alive. It means so much to the younger players. I can only imagine what those players thought when they opened up their Instagram and saw that you DM them. But then it means a lot to you guys too.
Yeah, I was a
Lots
little
of us.
worried they'd be like, who are you? But
Nah,
I didn't
no
get
way.
that
They know your
response.
stats. They know your stats. Okay, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're gonna talk about, back when you retired, you did describe it as choosing your family. It was a choice. You started a family. You obviously now have a beautiful family with Drew. What's it like watching Drew? Like, what's it like, being obviously his wife, but watching him as an athlete go through his career? Obviously, he just won with Boston, won with Milwaukee a couple years ago. Let me check my facts, 16. So what's that experience like watching him?
Yeah, it's really fun. It's crazy. Like when Drew and I first started dating and then we got married, like I feel like it was all about me. Like I was on the national team. He went to 2011 World Cup. He went
Yeah.
to 2015 World Cup. He went to the London Olympics. Like he was at all of those things with me. He just 2008 Olympics he wasn't. And he like experienced those things like in Canada. He came for the entire time.
Wow.
And he brought my dad, so he is a saint.
Yeah.
Literally traveled
Drew.
with my dad like 30 days across Canada with my dad, knowing it was my last one.
I've done the guest program now once. That's I mean, that's a grind.
Yeah,
that
it's
guest
a
program is-
different
yeah.
level.
You don't get
Next
to
level.
you don't get to stay with them.
No.
Point that out.
Yeah, so he could see me when he saw me.
Yeah, they have like, I don't know, what's it called in prison?
Conjugals.
Yeah, not conjugals. I meant yard time.
Oh, yard time.
Yard time.
Whoa. What?
That's what Meg meant too. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
Anyways,
Recess.
So I feel like it was very much like he was supporting me. He was with me like there. And then when I retired and obviously I had the brain tumor, he took off time and I felt like a lot of it was about me. And now it's like so fun to just watch him. Like I know that people watch Drew play and they're like, oh, he's so calm, he's so this. Like it's really his personality. Like Drew was pretty even across the board, like not too high, not too low. And he's like a player's player. Like he wants to do the dirty work. He wants to show up. He doesn't want to take a picture. He doesn't want to like be on stage. He doesn't want to talk in front of a camera. And so like really just to watch him be recognized for everything that I've known that he is, I think that is my favorite part. And like to see him succeed and win 2 championships and 2 gold medals, I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Like he's always been this, you know? But like for the world to see it has been amazing.
You guys are so similar in that way. You said player's player, like just the person everybody wants to play with. Like Drew can score 25 points, and like maybe he will sometimes, but he doesn't really care. We're the best goal scorer that I've ever played with, and your passing was like way better than that. That's just like always something that stood out. And I feel like in this next iteration in your life, something you choose over and over and over again is community. I feel like you were choosing it when you played, just the type of teammate you were, but off the field now and in your retirement, you choose community over and over. Drew and Lauren Holiday Social Impact Fund has been what you say your biggest accomplishment to date. Can you just tell us about some of the work that you're involved in right now and like what that foundation means to you? You said before also like you don't want to just have your name on stuff. Like you guys do so much incredible work and have for so long. Tell us a little bit about that, what it means to you and what you guys are into right now.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a lot of pressure to like only care about yourself. Like you put a lot of pressure on yourself if you're like, oh, I want to win. So like for me, like telling you you're the best player in the world, that's way more pressure on you than it is on me. And maybe that's selfish, I don't know. But that was kind of like what I adopted was like, if I can make Meg the best player in the world, or if I can make Abby the best player in the world, then that's only going to help us win, right? And so I think I adopted that really early on, actually in 2008 when I made the Olympic team after Abby broke her leg. I was like, I'm never going to play a minute, and this sucks because who wants to go to the Olympics and like never play? As a competitor, you don't want to. Like everyone should be like, oh, you're happy to play, but I wasn't. And I had to change my mindset of like, I'm going to be the best teammate, right? And I think that just is who I became and who I wanted to be. And I think off the court and off the field, it's the same. Like you see marginalized communities, you see people who are being mistreated and not treated the same as what I've been treated. And I'm married to my husband who has not had the same experience as me. I'm raising Black children in America. Some of my best friends are, you know, married to other women, or they're transgender, or there's things that are happening where it's like they still deserve to be loved. They still deserve to have rights. And so I think that honestly that comes from my foundation, from my family, from my faith. And I believe that like, I'm a Christian and I believe that God is love, and I believe that that means loving all people. And so how do I show that in the way that I live? It's how you show up for people. It's with a conversation, a hard conversation sometimes, or when you see that a whole group of people are being mistreated, or not given the same opportunity, then it's my obligation to step in. It's all of our obligations to step in and to be their voice. And so I think that is truly how, thank you. I think that's how JLH started, was Drew didn't want to go back to the bubble. He was like, how am I going back to the bubble? You're pregnant with my son, who's Black, and George Floyd just happened. There's a global pandemic that's disproportionately affecting the Black community more than the white community. Like, all of these things, he's like, what am I doing? Why am I going back? And I'm like, well, you not going, nobody's gonna care. And I mean that in the
harsh
nicest
truth.
But I mean it in the nicest
You're
way.
right, yeah.
Like, that's, you taking a stand does nothing for anyone. Like, truly, like, you saying, no, I'm not going. So I'm like, how do you actually make an impact? And Drew was like, I don't know. And I was like, what if we just give away the rest of your salary? And if you know my husband, he said yes, thinking it was his entire salary. Like, that just doesn't matter to him. And that's how it started. And honestly, like, we tell everyone that's the easy part. Writing a check is the easy part. What these businesses, what these nonprofits are doing, that's the hard part. And right now, with like DEI being rolled back and things happening in our country under this administration, like, we need people more than ever to believe in each other. We need people to step up where they need to step up. And I think that hopefully we can continue to do that with JLH, but not only that, we can inspire others to do the same.
God, we need more of you guys
I
in
know.
the world. Clone them.
Okay, so we're gonna get into a couple games here, but before we do, something Megan and I talked about on the pod once before was soccer players playing basketball and vice versa. Megan thinks she's like an excellent basketball player. She rates you really high.
Yeah.
So what is your take on your own basketball game?
I could play defense.
All right, so do you think you could post me up, back me down, and score on me the way Megan says?
Absolutely not. But I might be able to outrun you.
Might be
I
able
don't
to
know.
what?
I might be able to outrun
I
you.
feel like you're a bucket.
Meg, I think that I was a bucket for soccer players.
Exactly.
However, I could defend. I would work really hard. I would defend.
Yeah, we'll work hard.
You're 3 and D, 3 and D?
We'll foul.
No three, just the D.
3 and D
okay?
without
Just
the 3.
D, yeah,
Got it.
just the D.
Okay, so Megan did this. You want to build a basketball team of national team soccer players. Could you do that?
You're
Just pick
obviously
5.
on my team.
Yeah. I would pick Meg.
So
It would
it's
be-
me and Cheney.
Yeah, so me, Meg. Gosh, I'm trying to think now. Like, when I played the national team players that I played, I think I would pick Alyssa Nair.
Absolutely.
Need
She
some
was on
height.
my team.
Need some height.
Yeah. She went to Huskies basketball camp when Sue was the
She was a
counselor.
junior. Yeah, Alyssa Nair was a junior Husky.
She's big UConn fan. She's from.
So are you judging our pick, or?
No, I love it.
Okay.
And
you need
Lissy's-
some height. She's like
Lissy's
5'10".
just like crazy, so we need her.
I'm gonna go with Abby.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's tall.
I'm gonna go with Abby. She told me she was good once.
I could see her fouling a lot.
Yeah, she was. She was
I
physical.
don't see the. Yeah, I want her on my team though.
Yeah.
I definitely want her on my team.
For sure. She'd be a good rebounder. She had good timing in the air.
She wouldn't get 1 rebound. I just want to be clear
Come
about this.
on.
You guys are getting no rebounds. Only if they went long.
We're all fouling out though.
Yeah.
Oh,
1,000%.
we need extra fouls.
Every single person.
like a
It's
handicap.
not- okay, I need one more. I need to think.
No, it's tough.
Maybe it's a 3-on-3 team.
No, I think I'm gonna go Hope Solo.
Okay. Guys got a lot of aggression on there.
Yeah, that's our only hope.
That's what I
Beat
said.
the
We're all,
shit out of you
we're all
guys.
fouling out.
All right, bench start cut. We've got 2 versions for you. Okay, from a trophy case standpoint, bench, start, cut, these achievements. Your own World Cup title, Drew's NBA title, or the 4 gold medals in your household.
Oh.
Bench, start, cut.
Well, I think that the start is my World Cup title.
Love it.
The bench is his NBA title, and then cut the 4 gold medals. I don't know
Gold
where they
medals
are
are
anyway.
out.
It's true. I know. They're always like in a
I
weird
don't know where.
place.
They're probably still
They're
in
in a
the
drawer
bag.
anyway.
They're always in a drawer.
Okay, post-career workouts. We see you getting it on Instagram.
Oh, I'm having some knee issues right now, but
Yeah, that's
I
retirement.
was just battling some knee issues and I'm battling a hip issue. It's a lot.
Okay, boxing, treadmill run, yoga.
Oh, I'm starting boxing, benching, treadmill, and then yoga.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with
Yeah, I know. Running's hard. I've started running again. I'm like, oh, this is a lot. I'm like good at it, obviously, but then I'm also like, this is so hard.
I
I
think
told you, I
boxing's
saw
really
you
hard.
at Barry's, and I'm like, she never even ran when she was on the
I
national
know,
team.
and now I'm
Like,
kind of
what?
into it, but I'm also like, this is really hard.
I do all the classes.
Name all the classes that you do.
I do Barry's. I do, well, there's 2 in Seattle that are more like locals.
Okay.
But I'll shout them out. Shred 45, Rowdy Box. I do Rumble. I do, well, the hot yoga place, Bodhi. I do, or Bode. I do F45. The only one I haven't done is Orange Theory, and I'm like, I can't get into the heart rate competitive thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to know my splat
Metrics are
points.
too much.
But also Orange Theory. Okay, this is a hot take. I think Orange Theory is like the elderly version of Barry's.
Oh. Okay, so I'm in the right spot. And
You're not elderly.
last but not
Not yet.
least, I do Pilates, but more specifically Megaformer Pilates,
Yep.
SLT,
And the
some
tread.
solid core, and they have an SLT tread class. I mean, I'm booked all week, guys. You should see the apps I'm managing.
That's
It is-
impressive.
It is. I am motherboarding my apps in these classes. Like, oh, 9 a.m. Can I get there? But it's
Well balanced.
It's
Yeah.
also mostly what it comes down to is there's no self-motivation left. That was all used up. 0. So it's like if somebody isn't telling me to do it, I'm just not. I'm like, what? It's like we
1000%.
have a gym in our apartment. I haven't been in there in
we
months.
chose. We live in New York now. We chose our apartment complex based on the workout facilities and that it had a pool.
stupid.
I have not been in that pool once.
No.
It was lofty goals, right? Yeah.
We're
Is
like,
anyone
oh, we'll
swim
swim.
in
That'd be
retirement?
great. It's good for your body. I mean,
Haven't been in it once.
please.
Anyways, okay, so we're gonna take some Q&A from the audience before we head out of here. Does retirement make it easier or harder to be an activist? During your playing career, you have a built-in platform, but possibly also leagues or teams that want to have influence. So is it easier or harder?
I think it's easier. Back to what Meg was saying earlier, I feel like when you're in it, you're together, I feel like you live in a bubble. I don't feel like that you always live in reality. I used to have a friend that would tell me, like, you don't get to not text me back when you're in camp. And I'm like, oh, fair. Okay, you're right. You're still my friend in camp, too. Like,
Yeah.
what a concept. But I think outside of it, it's easier to be an activist. You have more time, like you said, and it's just easier to see everything.
Yeah, you're like in the real world.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some of the biggest areas of untapped potential in women's sports? For example, a specific sport, an area of funding, or a gap in the media?
I think it's marketing. I think that's like the biggest gap. Like, why do people not know about us more? Like, you see men's stuff all over. It's all over TVs. It's all over every channel. It's all of that. So I think, like, put us out there, let people see us, and they're gonna follow.
Yeah. Okay, so on that note, do you have any advice for female athletes in sports that still lack awareness, attention, marketing for the actual athlete?
Yeah, I think, like, seek it, learn it. I do think that that's one thing I wish I did when I was playing, was that I wanted to learn the business side of sport more. I didn't care. Did you care? Like, I feel
Only
like you
till
were
later.
more. Yeah.
Later.
I just didn't care. I was like, I'm gonna play because I love to play, and then, like, I'm gonna go have fun when when I'm not playing. I'm gonna go do what I want and be with my family and do all of those things. So it's like, you have so much time, even though you're in a bubble. Like, invest that time in understanding it, and I think that will help immensely.
Yeah, you have been amazing at this, and this Sloan conference is literally like a perfect case in point. Because I think even in the beginning, you started coming here before we met, but I was kind of like, what is it? And like, why are you going? Like, I don't really get how it works. You know, like I know you're gonna be there and wherever you are, it's good, but like,
I was like, 2 words, green room.
green room, yeah. And it's like we have the opportunity, whether it's like going to the White House because we won something and you get to meet the president and you get to meet all the people that work there, or you can go and, you know, be in a media room and like so many different journalists, or you're like go to a speaking event and it's Fortune 500 CEOs. Like soak it up. I would say that to I think all the students in here too, and just to young people, you know, especially being at a university like this or having this kind of access, like you have access to so many different kinds of people and expertise and opinions in different walks of life. I think just in general, like don't pass that up. I do think sometimes it was like when we were younger, I'm like, I don't really care. Like I just want to play. And it's like you can certainly do that and then just know when you're done, like it's gonna kick you right in your teeth. Because then you're like, now you don't even know how to be in the world. So I feel like that is something that you have always been really amazing at, is like taking the time to talk to people and be interested and like learn things. And then now you're like pulling all of those levers and those threads back into your life in your retirement.
Yeah, I just think as an athlete especially, you're just gonna be able to get into a lot of different rooms. You're just gonna be in a lot of different rooms, so you wanna make the most of those opportunities. Again, being your authentic self, all the things that have been talked about, honestly, all morning, even with your panel. But yeah, when you're in there, you make connections, you just never know who you're gonna meet, what you're gonna learn, how it could come back around, you know, 6 months, a year, 5 years, whatever it is. You might cross paths again with somebody. So I guess come from a place of yes when it comes to those types of things. Okay. Did you have a moment where you realized that others were really catching on to the value of women's sports?
I think my moment was when I'm an investor in Angel City, and like seeing their valuation hit what it did, I was like, oh, this is real. And when you talk about trends, I'm like, that's not going to trend backwards. That's going to continue to rise. And I think that's when I was like, oh, people are going to be interested, even if it's not for the right reasons, because they actually believe they're going to make money off women's sports. And so I think that was like the realization of like, oh, this is real. This is happening.
Yeah. You have a good one.
What? Which one?
Paige Beckers and Haley Van Lith's following.
Oh, yeah.
That was a long time ago. That was a really
yeah.
good light bulb moment for you.
Very quickly. So our CBA in the WNBA was being negotiated in the year 2019. We ended up signing it like January of 2020. And there was just something, I remember talking to people in our executive committee, and you know, the ways in which it impacted was, I kind of started to see with Paige Beckers, particularly, Haley Van Lith a little bit, but really Paige, I was like, man, she's like a junior, maybe a senior in high school. I was like, something's different about the way people are following her, the way people are engaging with her. And it wasn't just young girls, it was boys too. It was men. There was just something different about how she was attracting people to her, and then to the game of women's basketball, where I was like, I think something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that actually really informed a lot of how I was approaching, I was an executive committee member, how I was approaching that negotiation. Because it was like, we can't think about like these next 2-3 years, we have to think when the Pages of the world, what ended up being, right, like the Angel Reeses of the world, and the Caitlin Clarks of the world, and the Cameron Brinks of the world, we're like, this needs to be in a good place, so when they come in, it just explodes. So yeah, thanks, man.
I got you.
Shout me out on that one.
It was more than just her Riz hands, you know? You guys know? Yeah.
Pages were his hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Okay, 50 seconds, last but not least. It's a pretty easy one. What do you like as a sports fan? You talked about following Drew, you talked about the national team. Like, what do you like as a sports fan?
I am, depends on the sport. Women's national team, I am like all in, girl, like cheering. Also,
Yeah,
like
we were nuts.
I'm their auntie. Like even if I'm mad at them, I love them, and I'm like they're gonna be great. At Drew's games, I am a drag. I'm a drag. I am, and I'm like I really hope no one sits next to me because the amount of shit I talk is is not okay. And it's not okay. And sometimes I'm like, I should just stay on the couch. I'm better on the couch, you know, at home than
Couch coach?
someone possibly hearing what I say out loud in the stands.
In the wild.
I love that. Can't take the competitiveness out. I'd just like to say this is the first time we have ever finished this show on time. Woo! It helps having a clock. Yeah. Props to us.
Nice.
But of course, Lauren Cheney Holiday, thank you so much for joining A Touch More Live. That's our show. Thank you.
Thank you.